Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome aboard Bus Line 102, servicing Salt Lake City, Cheyenne, Sacramento, and San Francisco. My name's Phil. I'll be your driver for this leg of the journey. If there's anything you need to make your experience aboard the bus more pleasurable, you let me know. Along the way, I'll be pointing out various spots of interest and filling you in on the stories behind them. So sit back, relax, watch America roll by. I'll do the driving. Folks, you look out the right side of the window, you'll notice a sign marking the birthplace of one rather famous outlaw, born Sam Cassidy. Well, this Sam Cassidy was a rather prolific bank robber in his day. Seems one time, old Sam Cassidy wanted to make an honest go of it. So he headed south, down through the desert, to look into a piece of land some Mexicans were selling. Well, that evening around the campfire, old Sam Cassidy had a hunch. He could tell this group of Mexicans weren't really at all interested in selling him that land, and if he was to get out of here alive and with his money, he was going to have to do some quick thinking and shooting. So, reaching to his side, he picked up an old six-shooter with the name etched on the side of it and plucked off those Mexican hustlers faster than they could draw. Realizing he'd escaped a narrow pinch, old Sam Cassidy decided he'd rename himself after that six-shooter that saved him from those ornery hombres. What do you suppose the name of that old six-shooter was that saved Sam Cassidy there that evening? The name of that old six-shooter was Butch Cassidy. Well, wasn't long for old Butch Cassidy was back to his old ways robbing banks. One night he'd come across a town that was having a dance near sundown, something they called a Sundance. Well, wasn't long for a skirmish broke out, and old Butch Cassidy noticed an outlaw who called himself the Kid get himself out of a jam with some pretty quick pistol work. Old Butch Cassidy was so impressed by the Kid's gunplay there at the Sundance, he decided he'd join up with this Kid. But first, he'd give him his own nickname. What do you suppose the name old Butch Cassidy gave the Kid there that evening of the Sundance was? Sundance Kid. Called him the Sundance Kid, that's it. The name he gave him was the Sundance Kid. Well, wasn't long for the two of those outlaws was traveling across the Wild West, robbing banks in Kansas, Oklahoma, Colorado, and Utah. And soon, the townsfolk started noticing these two outlaws traveling together, and they decided they'd give them their own nickname. What do you suppose the name the townspeople gave old Butch Cassidy and the one he called the Sundance Kid was? Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. They just put an "and" between their names. Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, that's it. The name they gave him was Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. What I'm about to tell you may sound like nonsense, but what I am saying is the truth. About 5 years ago, I was admitted to a certain facility. a mind control facility where drugs were being given to us to make us forget about the outside world and keep us inside. But for some reason, the drugs didn't work on myself and my friend. One night, I escaped from the facility, where I was immediately surrounded by some lab technicians who proceeded to take various blood samples for what I know not. Looking down at my hands, I could see where they were covered in band-aids from where they had drawn the blood. And from then on, whenever I was hungry, blood was drawn. Whenever I was thirsty, blood was drawn. Whenever I wanted a smoke, and believe me, cigarettes were provided to us at all times. Blood was drawn. The guards then walked me back to the facility, where they proceeded to inject the drug into my forearm. But I sucked the poison from my forearm and spit it out. I then walked into the sleeping area of my friend, who slipped me a note. It was an escape plan where I had to be at a certain yard 6 at 6:30 p.m. I hid the note inside my notebook in a secret spot, and I whispered to my friend that I was still okay. Earlier, I had given him a half wink of the eye, after he had given me a full wink of the eye, just to let each other know we hadn't been completely taken in. Walking back with my friend, I noticed a very sexy woman paying keen attention to us, and I figured she was going to snitch. Sure enough, once we got back to my room, the guards demanded to see my notebook. Fortunately, I had slipped the note to another friend I could trust. Upon examining my notebook, they found nothing.